everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today's video is MSM. Media goes full enemy of the people, and SCOTUS will decide the fate of the election, right? This is just kind of a bit of a summary about an article I read this morning about exactly the consequence and nature of the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania declaring a few weeks before the election that ballots would be accepted up to 3 days after the election as long as they were postmarked before the election or by the election. And that is a very interesting thing for them to do. And in light of actually the act in Pennsylvania that enabled, that legalized mail-in ballots is called Act 77. And Act 77 says that it has a non-severability clause, which means that if any one provision of the article is broken and nullified, then the entire document is null and void, and no other provision has any legal weight, right? So if you break any part of it, you break the whole thing, and none of it is in place, right? That was a clause in the act. And one of the provisions in Act 77 says that all ballots, absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, must be received by 8 p.m. on election day, right? It does not make any equivalence. It does not, say, oh, if they're postmarked. It is insanely clear, like few things in the law are. And so basically by making that ruling, the state Supreme Court effectively invalidated their own mail-in ballot legislation, which is Act 77. So when this goes to the Supreme Court, I mean, it also was in contravention of federal election standards, but primarily they violated their own clause in their own law. And they're so stupid, I guess, and that they just never thought that it would really matter. But that's why they fought so hard against Amy Coney Barrett, because now it's exactly a person who will read the letter of the law and not take wide latitude interpretations about a living constitution and about, the spirit of the words more than the actual written meaning of the words. She should write the majority opinion when it is handed down that essentially because of the actions of the state Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, all of the mail-in ballots are thus invalidated. I mean, that is the absolutely logical consequence in the actions and the laws in play, right? And the Supreme Court, when they examine this, it's safe to say that they will rule in favor of Trump. And, we'll see whether or not that means all of the mail-in ballots are invalidated. Technically, as soon as they did that, that would be the effect of nullifying the law. So none of those ballots are valid that were mailed in. And thus Trump would have won the state by a landslide of like 1 million votes. And so it is a very interesting time. We didn't really want this to be the case of SCOTUS deciding it, but that's where it's going to happen. And it looks like they've got shenanigans in Georgia as well. Supposedly Biden has taken the lead and they're finding buckets of ballots. I mean, this is just ridiculous. And meanwhile, there's video in Pennsylvania of these ballot counters, and it's literally 4 people sitting there, 2 of them, just kind of looking at ballots, and then 2 of them basically with a pen and filling out ballots and placing them in the pile, right? So it's just so brazen and blatant. And these people they think that they're so ensconced and so beyond reproach, and they're just stupid and they don't realize it. But they assume that everyone is as stupid as they are, but we are not. And this election will not be stolen. And if it has to be litigated into place, then I'm cool with that. Because you know what? They've already, dismissed the legitimacy of the president, since 2016 with a whole bunch of bullshit. And, this is just really just the culmination and grand finale of their bullshit. I mean, in reality, there will always be more bullshit from the Democrats, and equally bullshit from the Republicans, for most of them, right? Most of them like to talk, a big game. Some of them don't even talk a big game, and then ultimately when it comes to action, they don't really, do what they're supposed to, except for, the good ones, the ones with balls. And again, that's what we love about Trump, the people of this country. Even if we didn't consider ourselves conservatives back in 2016 or even, 2017, 2018. Some of them don't even consider themselves conservative now, but there's a difference between being an old school liberal, which Trump, basically almost resonates more with than basically the communists and just deranged wackadoodles like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, now there's seriously challenges to her speakership because she's just such a terrible leader. She is so utterly ineffective and craven, and she's just transparently a maniacal power-hungry person, just a true sociopath. And the fact, that whole even mask debacle where she went to her salon and she wasn't wearing a mask. Meanwhile, she's the one who's enforcing these lockdowns, and her San Francisco has, super strict lockdown. And, basically, rules for thee, but not for me. And for the people who can't see it at this point, it's just absolutely, again, curtains for them. Like, we can still, be polite, I suppose, to these people, but in a very real sense, this is a tactical situation. This is an attempted coup, and we have a large cohort of sycophants in this country who have that Stockholm syndrome and have worshipped their captors, mental captors. And so, these are the people on the left, right? The people who believe the authorities, no matter what the authorities say. It does not matter if it concords with logic and facts and evidence on the ground. It is only the will of the authorities, right? Because, again, this is the new religion, and it's the new priestcraft and spiritual caste system and hierarchy. And you cannot question, the doctors, unless they're these doctors, right? You cannot question the government unless they're, these crazy conspiracy theorist Republicans. And you cannot, basically, you've got it's my body, my choice, unless you don't want to vaccinate, right? And then basically we have the right and power to seize you by force. Like, the living constitution type mentality, these people who are deconstructivists, these Marxists, the neo-Marxists, they, basically will just take any latitude to the point where, again, the sole purpose of that mentality is for nullifying the true words of those without authority and amplifying the false words of those within authority, and getting people to just believe what they're told. The fruit of the Prussian education system. And so, again, when people say, oh, it's all a conspiracy, man, Trump's just part of the conspiracy, and it's all scripted, it's all just the same people, man, it's all puppets. It's like, for a long time, for the most part, that was mostly true. But you can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time, as I believe Jesus said. Maybe it was Bob Marley. But, there's only so much that can be controlled, and the issue has always been this balance of power between those who are craven, sociopaths trying to control the levers of society and control the minds and hearts of men, and those who are basically of the light and who are trying to basically just bring balance to the realm and to improve it in any way possible with the time that they're allotted in their lifetime. And those are very, very real differences, and this is really it is analogous to a biological system. We have basically symbiont cells, body cells that exist as part of the greater, coherent, beneficial entity. And I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about the nation. I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about the world. Like, it's people, they're so programmed. And again, I was, an anarchist for a long time, and I've argued a lot of the things that people are now arguing against me. But the difference is that my, conservatism, I feel like, is dramatically more coherent than that I was offered when I was young, until I started listening to Ron Paul. And, Ron Paul it was a gateway for many people into sort of libertarianism and the right-wing way of thinking. And then you started to realize that even if you call yourself an anarcho-capitalist, like, the real anarchists, the commie anarchists, basically they'll just mock you. And there was always this division between the commies and the anarcho-capitalists. Those who believe in, unrestricted production and freedom, and those who believe in, unrestricted state power and subjugation of any who produce excess wealth. And, it's a very, very different psychic and psychological worldviews. Again, one born out of trauma, one born out of love, one born out of hatred, the other born out of creation and productivity and symbiosis, versus parasitism. And these are fundamentally different modes of life, and why there can be no reconciliation in a spiritual war. There can only be essentially a proper redistricting of territory and ultimately, a separation. Essentially, again, I believe that the state of Jefferson is absolutely necessary, and especially, on the Oregon side, the fact that now hard drugs have been decriminalized, meth and heroin and cocaine. I think that there's a lot of conservative counties in Oregon, just like there's conservative counties in California, that don't. That's just one of many parcels of ways in which the state is going in a direction that the rural counties don't want to go. And at a certain point, there will be a constitutional convention, and there will be a motion to, create this new state. And again, why I think that, again, even if Trump, we have set high expectations and he wins this re-election, and we get everything, we don't get anything we want as far as indictments. Let's go with the pessimistic scenario, right, where he just shakes Biden's hand and nothing ever comes of the Hunter Biden laptop, right? And people say that I am worshiping Donald Trump as a savior. You're the one who speaks as if Trump is the only one acting in the realm. You're the one who's fantasizing about his power as if it's so tyrannical, when actually everything he's done and said since taking office and before has been of a relatively, coherent and genuine spirit. Again, in politics, nobody gets to tell 100% truth. And even in our polite society, nobody gets to tell 100% truth, or things would just break down. And, there are conventions that we're all playing with, especially in the political realm. And Trump has basically, he has inspired a lot of people to take action and become proactive, and not to be these weak little beta cucks who always shrink and recoil from every challenge and just obey the dictates of the feminists and the media, right? If you roll over and just accept that it's all a conspiracy, that's literally the most disempowering, demoralized position that you can possibly be in. To believe that everything is controlled and you have no opportunity to influence the outcome. So for those who are supposedly enlightened about all these things, energy and philosophy, but you're still filled with misery and lack, and basically thinking that everyone is in on it against you, right? Everything is in on it against you if you project that energy out into the world. If you are a negative attractor field, then yes, you're like a black hole. Nobody wants to deal with you because you're always negative. And you don't actually see the opportunity for good in situations. You're always seeking to explain how it's a conspiracy. And even if I agree that many of the conspiracies, are true, right, that still doesn't need to make me into a person who believes that everything forever always will be a conspiracy. It is literally such you're turning yourself again into a rock, into a spoon, into just an object rather than a subject, rather than an agent. You have the opportunity to change things, and Trump gives us an opportunity to change more than we would be able to change with Biden-Harris, right? If a constitutional convention comes around, it's going to come down more to Congress, but having an executive that was supportive and could amplify that movement, and again, that's 2 extra senators, for the red team, and a whole bunch of population gone for California. It's an inevitable outcome. They want to, make D.C. a state and Puerto Rico a state. Well, then, goddammit, if we're going to give one to them, we're going to take one for us. And I would say first in line is the state of Jefferson, brother. And, but again, we'll see about that. But again, I'm speaking reality into existence, and I will not cease. I have resolved not to cease. I resolved 15 years ago never to cease, because otherwise I would have just taken myself out of the game back then. But no, war is the modality of life. It is always a war. It's just a quest of whether or not, you are a warrior of the light or a warrior of the rift. And, and they're not even warriors, they're lawyers, right? They just use the abrogation and manipulation of law, to just manipulate reality and to extract things from people and to, fulfill their parasitic schemes. And these people should not be empowered, such as those who are like, Joe Biden and all these high-powered Democrats, these hyper-corrupt, just cronies. And it's just, Trump, he might be a billionaire. He might seem like kind of a sleazy guy from New York, at times, but, he has courage in him. He has balls, and I'm not going to just believe some random conspiracy theorist on YouTube or BitChute or wherever because they said that everything's a conspiracy when I can see with my own eyes that no new wars have been started. You could say that, he hasn't wrapped up all the wars in the entire world. That's not in his power, again, but what has he been trying to do? He has been trying to get us out of these places as much as possible, and he has been stymied by the deep state. He has been stymied by the national security apparatus. And ultimately, if we keep amping up the pressure at the popular level, another Trump will come to pass. Again, I still think Tucker Carlson should get the hell out of that parasitic network, Fox News, and run for office. And maybe do a ticket with Kristi Noem, for 2024, regardless of the outcome here. But we will see. We will see. I'm always optimistic because I am seeking to change things, and I'm looking to just marginally influence the environment in which those actions are transpiring, right? Because again, there's a big difference between how fast you get somewhere and you're flying in a plane versus with, a 10, 15, mile or not headwind versus a tailwind. It changes everything when you have a headwind versus a tailwind. You can just ride the winds if you basically know that it is at your back, and even if it doesn't always come at your back, you can almost, the art of sailing is using almost wind from any direction and using it to go in any direction. And, I look forward to later in life fulfilling all that philosophy more in action and sailing around the world. But in any case, it's just we'll see what happens, but it seems like the litigation could go to the Supreme Court. It has to. It's already been a writ has already been submitted for the Supreme Court to review it, and I think that this could have a huge election effect on how many ballots are actually legally able to be counted. And it's all dismissed as conservative talking points, and it's all equivocated. But no, there are massive consequences here, and I have faith that whatever happens, it will be in the benefit of the people of this country and the people of the world, because that is the vibration where we're going. But it's, again, we're about to face challenges that make all of this seem like tiny little peanuts, and so it really matters where you're doing in your life to prepare for that. And not to get sucked in, even on the pro-Trump side and thinking that basically, yes, all of the authorities are to be believed as long as they're pro-Trump. Now, you should always check and balance people's work. You should always see if the numbers line up. And, the media is just amazing with its brazen, just Machiavellian, attempts to propagandize and control the minds of people. They'll say, Trump claims without evidence that voter fraud is occurring. How can you even say that? There is so much evidence. There's literally video live streams of these people just filling out ballots and putting them into the stack. Like, what is going on? How can people say without evidence? But again, they know they're not stupid. They're liars, right? They're not dumb. They're evil. They are maniacal in their presentation of incompetence, right? And again, even during the Democratic primary in Iowa, what a cluster that was. And we need to have a blockchain election system, and regardless of what happens in this election, that needs to just happen. But again, people will have an institutionalized system of incompetence as long as it benefits the corruption. All right, transparency is not the friend of the tyrant. And the media the people who believe the media, I feel so sorry for their sad, tortured brains and thinking that so much that is good is evil and so much that is evil is good. It's just a very psychologically taxing worldview, and why these people usually age more quickly, and they just have this kind of, reservation of just venom. But again, reconnect with the earth, drain that spirit of artificial, demonic energies from you, and return to the spirit of the Creator and imbibe the food of the gods. And that's my video today. Prayers for a beneficial outcome no matter what happens, and let me know what you guys think. But I'm not going to back down on something that's spiritual in nature. I'm not saying that I love Trump because politically all of his policies are exactly what I wanted and he's fulfilled everything. No, I'm just saying that he's better because he's spiritually of a much higher vibration than Biden and Harris, and it is good for our country, even if many people resist it, and it's because that will lift all boats, even if everybody goes kicking and screaming. Because guess what? You have to get a job when the world expands. You have to take responsibility, and you have to produce, and you have to keep the ship running because it was given to you, and you will give it to others. And it's a very fun and exciting process, but you have to have the right spirit. You have to just take up, again, the staff and the shield, and you have to move forth into reality and stop whining about conspiracies and schemers and their schemes. Well, guess what? You can scheme too, man. So can I. And, it's about whether or not we use our powers for good or evil. And when we examine the actions of Trump, I don't see how anyone can say that he is an evil man. I can definitely say that Biden is an evil man. And Harris is an evil woman. Again, it's like you don't have to say that Trump is God himself or he's an angel, but he's a good man. That's all that I can ask of anyone. And, it's all that anyone can ask of me in the end, as far as I'm concerned. So, that's my video today. Have a good one, guys. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.